Yeah, you know what? We were just talking about the need for social interaction with our kids, with everything that we're going on with the pandemic. Let's just kind of keep going on with that, and then translate it into what PB Abbate is about.
Sure. I think we are created for connection, and it's more than a want, and it's more than a desire. It is a need to be connected. I think veterans had this incommunicable experience. Whether you've been to combat or not, you've been a part of a team where everybody to the left and the right has said, regardless of your background, regardless of your religion, your political beliefs, your gender, your orientation, we all sitting in this room, in this team, in this squad, in this unit, we're willing to die for one another. And when you are part of an organization like that, and I mean, and that applies to our sailors, our soldiers, our airmen, and our Marines. Regardless of kind of what unit you're in, you all would jump on that grenade for each other. The idea of you'd all be semper fidelis, you'd all be always faithful to one another, and then you have this connection that is cannot be replicated outside of the military. And then you have this purpose where you very are directly, whether you're the cook, the adjutant, the submariner, the crew chief, it doesn't matter. You're a part of a team and you are issued a purpose. And you can always connect the dots pretty quickly to see why your mission is important and how it always kind of serves a bigger picture. And so uh, then you transition and you're given a DD-214 and said, okay, best of luck. And you as you take this piece of paper and you try to find your new space, it's it's difficult. And when we've been looking at the latest VA suicide reports, it says that that first year of transition is when veterans are most vulnerable. And I think it's because obviously it's at the height of change, and anytime you change, it's difficult. Anybody that knows that annoying person who studied abroad in Italy for a semester and they come back and they act like, oh my god, I just espresso, I just can't drink this coffee anymore, right? And it's like they spent a couple months in a nice country, whatever, and then they come back and this change is so difficult, right? And so like any kind of periods of change, they're always difficult. And so I think what we recognize is like, hey, uh, we need to provide a space to come alongside veterans and get them connected because it's actually not how many. You don't need 20 people to be. You just need somebody that you can sit and feel connected and feels that understands you and they feel like you can trust. And veterans speak this common language, and so we said let's create Patrol Base Abate to put veterans in community and to get them connected, irrespective of their backgrounds. And so that's when we look at what veteran service organizations exist out there and what they're doing. There's so many great organizations out there that do provide really good resources for veterans, but they all make veterans fit themselves into a box and put a label on themselves. And they say you have to be combat wounded, you have to be special forces, you have to have PTSD, you have to be disabled. And in order to qualify for our community, put yourself in a box. And what I was thinking is, what if I don't want to define myself? What if I just want to say, hey, I'm a veteran and I would just like some connection. And we've got Mike here, the book club captain for PB Abbate, and it's like, I am a combat wounded Marine, right, who likely will have some kind of service disability and probably has some PTS, right? there's a lot of organizations that I could probably tap into. You know, Mike's experience is a little bit different, but what isn't different is that he has a desire and a need to connect with other veterans identical to mine. And so, you know, what makes service so special isn't the combat deployment. What makes service so special is that you are one of the few Americans who said that I'm willing, right? It's the service. And so I said, let's get rid of the barriers to entry. Let's get rid of all the boxes that you got to check. And let's just say, if you served, come on, we want you on the team. You're eligible. And so I think building an organization with a common thread that is just service has been really flipping the script and making this the most inclusive model that we can make. And what we're really targeting right now is active duty members. So the two clubs that we recently stood up are our Outdoors Club and our Mountain Bike Club. And our Outdoors Club, we've got her name's Tiffany. She's leading the kind of outdoorsy, like hiking type stuff. We've got Sam Culbertson. She's leading the hunting aspect. And then we have Emma, who is taking the mountain bike club. And all three of these Marines are still active duty. And so what I'm trying to do is get a healthy mix of active duty and already transitioned veterans, because what we need to get veterans into community prior to transition, so that we need to get left a bang. We need to have some initiative and be preemptive. And so that way, that if that first year is that most vulnerable year, but you've already got a community that you're connected into, you know, I think that is really going to help veterans during that most vulnerable period. And so, whereas most organizations say you gotta be into what we're into if you want our services, we're saying, like, what are you into? Okay, then let's do that. You know, are you into yoga? Are there 3 other veterans who are into yoga? PB Abbate now has a yoga club. We'll set up an online forum for it, and next summer we'll bring you out to our patrol base out in Montana, and we'll have the yoga retreat, right? It's like, are you into gardening? Cool. We got a gardening club now. There's a couple other veterans. One of you needs to lead it. We'll put a gardening forum up, and you could talk about the best way to aerate sweet potatoes, and then next summer come out and we'll do some gardening out of Patrol Base Abbate. And so in our emphasis of being inclusive, you know, we'll meet you where you're at and build the community around you, rather than forcing you again to kind of check any boxes. And so things are moving. We next month, April 29th, we'll have a turkey club hunt in Montana at our patrol base retreat, and that is going to be free of cost for the participants. They will come up, and we're going to partner always with some kind of subject matter expert. And so we've got backcountry hunters and anglers. Sam Culberson, our hunting club lead, she's going to be out there as well. In June, we are doing Mount Rainier. Tiffany's going to be taking the Outdoors Club up Mount Rainier. We've actually got one of the guys here today. Is he's going to be going up. Mac's going to be going up, and then we've got some stuff that we're talking Black Rifle today. So we've got Logan Sark is going to be part of that trek, going up Mount Rainier, and then 4th of July weekend we'll have our book club come out, and we're going to run 3 successive retreats. 4th of July weekend will be the book club. Following weekend will be the fight club. Following weekend will be our strength club. And so we're looking at getting 3 separate retreats of veterans out to Montana this summer. And I think that might be a good place to start talking a little bit about the specifics within the clubs and kind of what we're doing and how that looks. And
yeah, Mike, that inclusivity, did you feel it when you just reached out saying, hey, I want to possibly do this book club?
Right away, actually. You know, it all moved very quickly. I just sent an email out. I said, this is what I've done. This is what I can do. This is what I'm interested in. And it wasn't even 2 weeks later that I got an email back like, let's jump on a Zoom call. And I sat down with Tom, and Aaron and Mikey, the other captain of the book club, and we got the ball rolling. And I mean, immediately I felt brought in. You know, there was no trying to, aside from just some very basic administrative stuff, there was no, you know, trying to dig into my history or have you done this, have you done that. It was like, all right, if you're into this, we're into it. Let's do it. And that sense of community is essential. It's essential. And like Tom was saying, before even transitioning out, it's establishing that there doesn't need to be this dramatic. You're not doing parkour between two skyscrapers. It doesn't need to be that way. It can be a very much just like that was one part of your life, and now this is another part of your life, just another chapter, and it can be very smooth that way.
And kind of even like with that, like you giving that resume gave you some kind of clout behind your name in some sense, and so like him just kind of giving you that creative control of like, hey, this is what I want to do with the book club. Like, has that relationship been pretty seamless as well?
Yeah, I mean, Tom's been very receptive to everything we've put out there, and it's, you know, it's nobody's in charge of everything. You know, it's very much an open communication, collaborative process, and we've got a whole list of books that we want to talk about. And we're very open to ideas as well. We're looking at books that have established legacies already, that have, you know, things that are going, that we know people will have already probably read, as well as up and coming writers who are still kind of getting their feet underneath them, or just upcoming and finding their own voice. So we're very open to different ideas, and we've had a good time so far figuring out just how we want this to look.
So is that kind of the goal with it, is once a club's kind of up and going and you get the right people in the spot, it's like, hey, you're kind of in charge of this, just kind of let me know what you're doing. Like,
Yep. The key word is the right people in place. And so once someone says, so right now, if you go to pbabbate.org and you go to sign up and you don't see a club that you're into, all you got to do is say like other, say what you're into, and indicate, do you want to lead it? And it's like, all right, let's just talk. And I'm just going to say, hey, are you actually passionate about this thing? Is this something you want to do? Do you want to serve? You do? Okay, it's your club. Here's how you access the forums. Here's some permissions to kind of control the forum, and let's go. And so what I'm doing is I'm applying the Marine Corps doctrine of MCDP-1, which is our warfighting doctrine. And what we do in the Marine Corps is we like to have decentralized command and control, and we like to operate off of mission type orders, where I've given Mike the commander's intent. Hey, let's get these veterans connected. I want you to create a community for them and make sure it's engaging, have a return on investment for their experience. And then I don't want to tell you how to do it, right? I just want to tell you, here's the end state, get after it. And my enlisted Marines for the past 13 years have been accomplishing great things without me telling them how to do it, right? Them to say, hey, here's what the battle space needs to look like. And then I get out of their way. And so that's what I'm doing with my club captains is, hey, here's what we want to see. And I want to get out of their way and let them be creative and take the initiative and take the reins. And the book club is a great example of a couple guys and gals who have grabbed the reins and created a really cool things going on with the book club. We're coming up on our third meeting. We've been doing a meeting a month. And last month, poetry readings, and I mean, you want to talk a little bit?
That's what I was wanting to ask, is for people who maybe aren't already tracking, like, what have you guys, like, the inception of it, like the very beginning, what have you done till now? Like, what are the actual goals? Because you're saying like this is what you're talking about. Like what is it that you're talking about? What are those goals?
Yeah, so our first meeting was back in January. We kicked it off with Tribe by Sebastian, which was, we wanted to get this idea of a community feel across, and that was a fantastic read to start off with, because it just hits all the wickets all the way down about exactly tribe mentality, what that means, where modern society is at in a lot of different ways, and it's done from a military perspective in a lot of ways. And we had, that was a great way to kick things off. We moved to poetry for February. We had Graham Barnhart, who is a former Special Forces medic, and that was a totally different type of environment, where we had a guy who's currently a PhD candidate for creative writing, who's actively living a writing lifestyle, having had a military background. He's transitioned to that, and he's taken on a creative career, full time. And to have him there reading the work, and conversing with us and engaging in some, difficult questions, and giving us just his views on, everything from writing to life to his experience in the military it just showed you the kind of the broad spectrum that we're able to go from collection of essays and to poetry. And now, I mean, coming up this month, we're going to be doing Starship Troopers by Robert Highland, which is, you know, one of these books that has a legacy attached to it. It was an obscure 1950s science fiction novel, and then it was turned into a cult classic in the 90s with the movie of the same name. I mean, I'm pretty sure the first Halo video game descends from that movie. Like, if you look, there's a lot of similarities between the two. So that's a book that there's a ton to talk about with just the legacy that's built in. And going forward, we're going to be looking at a lot of other different writers who are, you know, doing great things as well.
Do you have experience doing that prior to doing this book club, other than just maybe talking to people about books?
I've never run a book club, no. You know, I'm a writer myself, and that's really, I'm comfortable in workshop environments and discussing works that way. And I was an English major when I was an undergrad, but this is the first time I've ever engaged in an actual book, like a widespread book club on this level, yeah.
So, like, that's encouraging, right? Like, you just had this idea and you just put yourself out there and he trusted you with it, and then look what's come of it, you know? And so, like, that's the leader giving the responsibility to the troops, you know? So, like, that totally translates.
It's essential,
perfectly.
And I think it's a fantastic example of how that can work but everybody has to be a willing participant in that, you know what I mean? There's a lot of trust that goes into that, and there's a lot of dedication, and yeah, but I mean, it's a great example.
And, like, with that, like, what's been some of the feedback that you've gotten just based off of the club in itself? Maybe not necessarily from each book, but, like, from the club, like.
Well, you know, we've had a great turnout for the last two, and I'm hoping this next one's looking like it's going to shape up to be a great turnout as well. And people are into it. And, like, some of the feedback we got right off the bat was, I don't feel like I'm trying to be sold anything. I don't feel like this is some sort of superficial networking opportunity. It's just a bunch of veterans sitting around a campfire, a virtual campfire. We're all on Zoom right now, but, you know, talking about what we love. And, you know, one of the things I did want to kind of emphasize going forward was the only thing that I heard from some people was like, well, I'm not a literary guy. I don't really understand poetry. Or I wanted to disarm that kind of like mentality as much as possible. Just come in with an open mind. Like, if this spoke to you on any level, don't try and, you know, convince us you're a literary guy or something like that. Just come in and talk about it. Why did it move you? You know, this is the idea. It's connecting. We're not trying to put up some sort of, oh, we're the book club, we're the intellectual types, or we're a bunch of nerds, yeah, in our own way, but we are able to, you know, we have this passion, and that comes in all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, and that's how I want to keep it. I want anybody to be able to drop into that meeting and feel like they're a part of it and they're welcome to the conversation.
But yeah, imagine how intimidating it could be with saying, hey, this is a book, let's talk about it, and then people who don't understand story structure or character development or just overall theme, they're like, oh, I just really like the idea that in Tribe, I was a part of something and now I'm not. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly it. And then that coincides with our mission. So that was brilliant for you guys to start with that book. And then that just translates to every other club that you guys have, which with that, like, what other clubs have been developing in, like, recent times? Because we talked when you first started it, and it was like maybe like 3 to 5 at that point. And it sounds like you have like a dozen now.
Sure. Mike brings up a great point, is that it is not, you know, so many, from what I hear, we're still relatively new into the veteran nonprofit space, but we aren't trying, this isn't some kind of thing where it's just a network to achieve something else, right? The purpose is the campfire. The purpose is just on a Friday night, once a month, 40 to 50 vets are gathering with a beer and talking about literature, and no one being judged, and no one, it's just like, and that's it. It's literally the whole thing we're selling is just the community feeling and just the campfire. And so and you know, to Mike's point about, like, I'm just blank, you know, I can't tell you how many DMs I get from my Killzone page where people will say, you know, I was just a mechanic, I was just a reservist, and it's like, that's why we're trying to get rid of this mentality, because we've somehow convinced ourselves that you're nobody unless you did this deployment or had this tab or had this ribbon. And I'm just saying, hey, you're not just, like, you served, and that matters, and we want you to be part of this. And so I don't care if you just read the book and you just, right, like, just hang out around the campfire, you know. And I don't care if you were just the admin clerk in the Air Force. You did something that very few other people do, you're welcome here. And so our fight club is developing really well. We've got a guy back in Chicago who runs a grappling gym there. Our strength club, we've got the owner of CrossFit, Joshua Tree, is a sniper from 2-7. He's taken the lead on that. We're really looking forward to getting some folks in that strength club active. And then what we're doing is we're keeping our outdoors club kind of having subsets right now. So within our outdoors club, we've got like hiking, backpacking. We've got fishing. That's moving really well. I anticipate within the next 6 months we'll definitely have a fishing retreat. We've got the hunting aspect, and now we've got the mountain bike aspect as well. And so we'll so long as what I do is I review the veterans sign up list and I see what somebody's into it, what they're into. And again, when someone checks other and then they also check, yes, I want to lead it, all I do is a follow up and I say, okay, you've now got a club. And so we'll continue to onboard those clubs as fast as we have people that demonstrate interest. Like I said, I'm so tired of having to fill a certain box and meet a certain label. And that's why I say, just this is for you, for the veteran community. And so let us find a way to meet you where you're at. And where we've also seen some growth is in our region. So we've got Southern California, we've got a PB Abbate SoCal, we've got a PB Abbate Texas, we've got New York, New Jersey, and Chicago. And what's so great is our SoCal version just did their first event last weekend. They partnered up with Recycle for Veterans, and they went down to Oceanside Beach. And just a bunch of PB Abbate guys got together, and they went and served their community and picked up some trash on the beach. And that's what it's all about. It's just connecting and finding ways to serve. And so, our mission is to connect veterans and our purpose. So when a mission is broken up between a task and a purpose. So when you look at a mission statement, you should be looking for a task and a purpose. Our task is to connect. And then our purpose is to honor the fallen. And we're starting by honoring Sergeant Matt Abbate. We'll say his name first, but whoever you need to honor, whoever that person is to you, you honor them, right? And we're going to start with Matt Abbate, one of my snipers, and then but every member gets to kind of come in and bring that person that they want to honor. And so that's where we're at. And we're going to keep adding regions, and we'll keep adding clubs as the interests are expressed.
I kind of want to expand a little bit on that idea of I'm just because I see it all the time, and I get frustrated at times when people play that victim card at times. We've talked about that at times, and it is frustrating, but I've also become recently kind of frustrated in this, like, no confidence, and it's that just, like, I write it within a sentence and I'm like, that doesn't need to be there because it just dismisses almost anything after it. And so, like, people are like, I was just a dude, I'm doing cool things, want to do this. And it's like, no, man, like, one of the things you learn in public speaking or something like that is credibility and something, or like, what are your credentials in some sense. And it's like, you don't want to necessarily put yourself into all these boxes, but it's like, at least kind of wear some of them with some kind of pride, even though pride maybe not be the right word, but it's like, you've done things, wear them, and like keep moving forward. But like just kind of being dismissive about it, to me, is like frustrating because it just kind of like lacks confidence and that self-assurance that like warriors, soldiers, Marines alike like need to have. And maybe that sense of the community helps bring that back out of like I like to be encouraging as well as be encouraged, and so like that word just it is very frustrating. I can relate to that.
I mean, it's if you look at least the veteran community from a social media standpoint, you could quickly see why someone would feel a little self-conscious and would feel a little bit like maybe their experiences aren't valid. We see what's popular, we see what's glorified within the veteran social media space, and so it's the special forces guys. I mean, it's it's about 1 to 2% of the DoD is in that realm, but it's 99% of what you see in social media. And so when it gets magnified like that, you might think, oh, I didn't carry a scar with a suppressor on it, so I'm just like, it's like, yeah, no one else did either, right? And so it's like, don't worry about it, right? And so I think that we are so into that, which again, I love those guys. They deserve all, the credit, but not at diminishing the value of service, irrespective of, you can't control where you deployed, right? You don't control your deployment cycle. It's like, it's just, hey, did you raise your right hand? Then you don't have to say that just, right? There's nothing about after you've put your name on a check up to your life, there is no, you throw the just in the trash, right? It's all good.
So I wonder if that plays into, like, earlier, to kind of give a little bit more of your background for you, is like you're part of this literary journal right now within your MFA program for your university, and we're talking about the trends that you've been seeing in recent stories, and it's about this identity issue, whether it's a national identity or gender identity or sexuality, all just whatever it might be, but it does translate into the veteran community of this identity of either being totally dismissive of your service because you may not be proud of what you actually did because for whatever reasons, or you do try to amplify it and overcompensate in some sense, and through other influences that you see through this filter of social media, where what seems to be cool about PB Abbate is like it unveils that curtain. It's like, no, we are just regular guys, like that this is just what it is. I think that identity thing is huge within our culture and the veteran community, and then our culture within society as a whole.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think it's cool to see that there's more of a pushback on that narrative, because for a while when I first joined, that was that like I was just was a very, very prevalent thing, and it's good to see that there's more vocal pushback on that, because I mean, in my experience, I've only been around for a little while, but I've met so many people, and they don't, as long as you're not walking around pretending like you put the flag up over Mount Suribachi by yourself, like nobody really cares what your MOS was or what. Just be yourself. Just own your experiences. You know what I mean? I mean, in Sebastian Junger's tribe, he talks about other countries where service in the military is pretty much obligated. Like you don't have a choice. And like thanking somebody for their service over there is like thanking them for doing their taxes. Like that's just that wouldn't make sense to anybody. And I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way to go about doing it, but it's almost like we get fit into these certain types of identities. We get put up on certain types of pedestals, and we're carrying also a long tradition of past generations, like the guys who got back from Vietnam and the way they were treated when they first got back. I feel like sometimes we're still feeling the echoes of that. My first thank you for your service came literally 10 minutes after I got off Paris Island, and I had no idea how to react to that. So there's this constant back and forth of like how we should feel in those kind of situations. But it's good to see that people are being more vocal about just being who you are. Whatever your experiences are, they were valid. Just own those experiences.
You want to add anything to that? That pretty much sums it up, I would say, because we just need to be reminded who we were back during our service and going forward, and not necessarily put our identity in our accolades or our failures, because when we're talking about writing and everything, like I said, the Vonnegut, like the caterpillar analogy of that's how he saw, or the Tralfamadorian saw humanity is from birth to ending, and no single moment defined a person, good or bad. It's like, that's kind of the truth. Your service, whatever merit it held, was just that one little portion, that insect in the amber, and so you do continually have to prove yourself to yourself and your peers, and what better peers to keep you accountable than the men and women that you served with while you were in service, So I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing this. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that kind of hints on what else may be in the future for PB Abbate?
We're going to continue to increase how many retreats that we're bringing out every summer to Montana. We're going to continue to have different regions of PB Abbate growing, and I anticipate that what you'll find is that there'll be some kind of PB Abbate event going on in your area throughout the year. And so it's not just a thing that happens in Montana. It's a community that's alive and it's well, and it's where you're at. And I see the mass starting. I see us starting to approach a critical mass, and once we hit that critical mass, I think you'll see a tipping point, and it's gonna, 17.4 million people are eligible to be part of Patrol Base Abbate. We have 17.4 million veterans, and if you're active duty, and if you're a reservist, you're eligible to be part of it. And so there. And by the way, there are no barriers to entry. You who are listening to this, you're come on in, right? And so I think once that message, once the awareness starts to take root, because like we started this off, we're talking about our kids needing to connect, and just like we have this need to connect from birth, and it's just intensified by our service, and we're all looking for that connection, and we know that, hey, we're veterans, we speak a language, we can trust one another, and so as more and more people become cognizant that, hey, there's a place that you rate, and it's not a place just. There is no just in this place. Someone we posted about one of our retreats the other day and said, our female veterans, yes. It's like, are blank veterans? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You are eligible. Yes, you are qualified. Yes, we'd love to have you out, in Montana and join us on the forums. And so I think that message is pretty universal, and it's gonna catch fire.
To kind of highlight on something again that we talked about last night, and you said that you weren't even aware about my story, but what I think is also contributing to that or the devalue of self in some sense is what's great about you naming it PB Abbate is you said it in the previous podcast, and anybody that knew him said that he was the soldier or the marine, like the man's man, like he was one of the greatest people alive. And I said that's just kind of typically how it goes, is those are the ones who make the biggest impact and the biggest influences on your life, and then it seems like they're just taken away from you. And that's what happened to me personally. And my first son's named after my buddy who sacrificed his life while we were downrange, Theodore Glindy. So my oldest son is Theo. And that name holds weight to me every day, just like Abbate will to every person who's involved in this. I said it last night, is when people start wanting to put themselves into those positions for them, thinking that it's like selfless or it should have been me rather than them kind of mindset, it's like, in my opinion, it's like that devalues what that person really was and what they did. And it was sacrifice for their brothers. That's what that selfless love is for. And the resemblance of Christ in some sense, with no greater love than to lay one's life for their brothers, And so when some person of that caliber shows that they have that weakness or that vulnerability, which is their human life, this is what shows the power that the impact that they made and the influence that they had. And so you should be proud and confident in your ability to live on that legacy that they created through who they were, because that's what it always is. Like you said, that generational image of the warrior through Vietnam veterans and all these other veterans of our past. Well, we will be veterans of the past someday. So how do we pass that torch to everybody else? And it's through men like those guys and the men that come after them, lifting up their name, So I just can commend you guys for doing it, and it's really, really awesome. And you could tell that it's obviously speaking to so many people just based off, like you said, you had so many more volunteers right off the bat than people, and now I imagine that's already flipped, which is in these early days. So strong work, you guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.